Hey, Geekscapists! Welcome to a brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm Jonathan London, your host. If this is your first Geekscape podcast, well, we're going to talk movies, video games, comic books, TV, all of the pop culture talk you can fit in a hour-long podcast. Maybe we'll go an hour, maybe we won't go an hour. This is a Geekscape special. We're going to be talking exclusively about the Black Adam film starring Dwayne Johnson that came out in theaters last week. And we got a lot to say about it, Ian and I. Went to see it last night upon returning from the film festival. It's been a busy month. I started it in Texas, then I came back and I prepped the wedding, and then I shot up to San Francisco to direct something, shot right back from a rehearsal dinner, got married, and then almost immediately went to Santa Fe for the Santa Fe Film Festival, which was a lot of fun. Maybe I'll talk about it in a future episode, so subscribe. It was a blast. And I came home and I have this package, Geekscapist, from our good friends at Hunt a Killer. I don't know if you know about this Hunt a Killer game, but it's like a subscription box, but it's a mystery game. Our good friend Keith Tralins, who used to run LA Comic Con, works for Hunt a Killer now. And as like a wedding gift, he sent me this big ass box. If you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, check out this box. The Cosmic Adventures of Supernova. This box is big and it's heavy. It's like an official fan club box, but it's actually not like a fan club box full of items. It is part of a Hunt a Killer game. And I think if you go to huntakiller.com, you can sign up to get one of these boxes. And what it is, it's a game night thing where you get together with your friends and you solve a murder mystery. So they've got all sorts of themed murder mysteries that you can solve. I think it takes about a night. You get together with some of your friends, sit around, and the box is actually full of clues about the murderer. And you got to do some stuff online, but for the most part, all of the clues about the murder and to catch the killer are in this box. So once I open it, I'm going to get together with some friends for like a game night. Maybe it'll be Ian Kerner and his wife, Stephanie. And we'll play this over the course of a few hours and hunt a killer. Look at how cool is that? Thank you so much, Keith, and the folks at huntakiller.com for this very heavy, very cool retro comic book game where we're gonna solve a murder mystery, and it's gonna be superhero themed. So that's fun. I'm looking forward to this, dude. Thank you so much. And if y'all are interested in any of that stuff, go to huntakiller.com and check out their whole array of party. It's like a murder mystery dinner theater, whatever it is. Get together with your friends and solve a mystery, solve a murder. That was a pleasant thing to come back to, and I had a blast in Santa Fe. So many highlights, including meeting filmmakers. Some of them you're going to see in the coming months here on Geekscape as their films get distribution, and you can see them maybe on Netflix or VOD. I saw some really, really awesome stuff. So subscribe to the podcast if you haven't, and share it with your friends if you haven't done that either. A little share button. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that little bell button. Is it a star? Is it a bell? And you can kind of be notified, I guess, when we go live. And there's a ton of stuff coming up on Geekscape as far as the YouTube channel, for sure, because we've got a benefit for Big Brothers Big Sisters again during the holidays this year. That'll be the second weekend of December. We have a ton of Los Angeles Comic-Con content coming down the pipe for y'all. The first weekend of December, we submitted a ton of panels, and LA Comic-Con was like, bring on the panels. We love the Geekscape hosts. We love the Geekscape podcast network, and so we're gonna have we're gonna have quite the presence there. And then what else? I think Matt Kelly's going live on the YouTube this Friday. That would be the 28th of October to kind of do something. I don't know what he's doing, but he's having a lot of us on there throughout the day to just kind of live stream with him and hang out. So please be sharing and hanging out with the Geekscape staff and checking in with us regularly on all the social stuff. Okay, let's get to it. This is the Black Adam special. This is a movie that I think Ian and I were both quizzical about as it was announced, and then as it was developed and undeveloped, and as Warner Brothers went through various iterations of what they were doing with the DC Entertainment universe. And well, we ended up with what we got. As Joey Kochick says, as he's watching on YouTube, he says, "Oh man, this movie almost good." Whether or not we agree with Joey, well, I guess you're just gonna have to find out. So let's roll those credits and let's get right to it. All right, Geekscape, let's get right to it. We've got this movie with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Black Adam. Maybe you're familiar with the character from the DC Comics, maybe you're not, but he kind of bounced a little bit in the films as far as development goes before he ended up with this film. We didn't really know how he was going to be introduced, but maybe Ian here, who is our specialist in all things comic book and film, can shed a little bit of light on it because I don't know, Ian. Ian, would you say that the Black Adam film had kind of like a circuitous like way to the screen? Like we didn't know how they were going to introduce this character or if they should in this way?
Absolutely. I mean, it was originally supposed to be in Shazam, which would have made sense, which we'll get into. And so I hear different things about that. I mean, supposedly, this is a character that Dwayne Johnson always wanted to play. He didn't want it to be in Shazam. He wanted it to, get its own. I mean, look, I guess something worth talking about is The Rock is really promoting this strongly. He's been promoting it for a while and pushing about, how the hierarchy of the DC universe is about to change, that Black Adam is going to become this big, important character. And it's an interesting thing. Black Adam was definitively, for many, many decades, a villain, specifically a Captain Marvel villain. To be clear, Captain Marvel is what Shazam was always the identity, in the comics. But there was a confusion for so long, particularly because the TV series was often called Shazam, when Shazam was actually the name of the wizard that Billy Batson got his powers from. So they renamed him Captain Marvel. But Black Adam was essentially a version of Captain Marvel from 5,000 years before, someone else that had been given the powers, and he was bad. So in recent decades, they've sort of made him an anti-hero, misunderstood. He's worked with the JSA, he's worked with the JLA very recently. So the idea of what they're doing in this movie does have precedent, but it's really interesting that they just completely and totally. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but they actually have him saying Shazam. They have the wizard, but they actually never once refer to Billy Batson's character Shazam,
who's established in the DC Entertainment Universe. Yeah. Like this takes place in the same
about
universe.
To come out, who the original idea was that Adam should be introduced there, and Johnson didn't want that, so they made their own movie. But I mean, it's like blatant how he's not even referenced. It doesn't even make any sense.
There's an entire origin sequence in this movie where you see ancient Kandak, which is like an Egypt or something in this world, and to me, there's parallels that you're going to see in the upcoming Wakanda Forever with Namor, because he is also the anti-hero, sometimes a villain, sometimes a hero, champion of a nation, right? And it's Atlantis for Namor, and here it's Kahndaq for Black Adam. And it's basically like, hey, we're our own nation. You don't mess with us, we won't mess with you. And that doesn't always fly. He's a superpowered person, and so he runs afoul of people like the Justice League, the JSA, and people like that, especially Shazam. Watching the origin where you see this slave 5,000 years ago in Kahndaq when they're trying to mine this infinitesium or whatever the heck the mineral is, it doesn't really matter. Eternium. They mention the wizard. You see the wizards. You see the wizard from Shazam, and they talk about Shazam being the power that'll turn him into a superhero or back into a normal mortal. And you're just waiting for more Shazam. It's all over that origin sequence.
But you touched upon something, and that's and let's say I think you and I both have the same feeling about this movie. It's kind of confusing. There's so much wrong with it, but I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it because it's fun to see Dr. Fate, and I love Dr. Fate. It's fun to see the JSA. And that being said, Dwayne Johnson is the guy to play Black Adam. Mm-hmm. I thought. He maybe could have used a little bit more of an accent or maybe pushed his acting in a different place. I mean, he's very Dwayne Johnson in this movie, but he's the guy to play Black Adam. He's fantastic for it. The material itself, maybe we could have launched this in a Shazam movie and it would have been held a little bit more aloft than it is here, because it is kind of lumpy, man. You can see the drafts in this.
Yeah, from what I've heard, he was originally like the one villain in the first Shazam, but then at one point it was supposed to be, a cameo at the end, and that would have worked for me.
Yes.
You know, just a cameo at the end and then do this movie, and I still, you know, would have been titillating, whatever else. But again, I've heard that Johnson really didn't like that first Shazam movie.
Which is a really good movie.
The kiddiness of it and all that, but it's a great movie. Supposedly, I don't know. Supposedly, he does have a cameo in the second.
Which is great because it's Fury of the Gods. And in this movie, demons and gods are involved. And I think that for the most part, some of that stuff was good. I enjoyed the origin story for the most part. It's a little long. And again, I'll say it again. You can see the drafts in this film. There are, I mean, it feels like a sequence of vignettes. I feel like there's a fourth act on the film after I thought that the film was kind of reaching its crescendo. There was an entire part after it.
There absolutely was. But it was really interesting, right? The movie feels
there's multiple
over
heroes.
Well, the movie
and then there's multiple villains,
up, right?
Yeah, and if you want to,
and then there's a whole ass part of the movie that's like, okay, wait, but there's still this to do.
Ian, if you didn't like the kiddiness, if you didn't like the kiddiness of Shazam, like there's a skateboard kid in this, man, and like a skateboard kid who like skates past people with guns shooting at him, and even uses the skateboard to like slide down a clothesline.
Well, wait a second. Let's really talk about this.
Okay,
how derivative this movie is. I mean, because all those sequences are right out of Terminator 2.
Yes. You're not supposed to kill people. You're not supposed to be a bad guy.
Right.
And
have a catchphrase, you know, be fun.
It's a
like
lot of T2.
Terminator 2. Going back to early in the movie, Eternium. So in the comics, Eternium is something they introduced in the Legion comics when they were looking to bring back the concept of, you know, a wizard-empowered being, Thunder, in the future. And Eternium was at the Rock of Eternity, which is where Billy goes in Shazam, was destroyed, and the Eternium are pieces of the rock. Never has it been that it's the actual like power source per se. So again, that's where that comes from. But what got really interesting for me was, okay, they're using I mean, it screamed to me like, oh, hey, we have this element Eternium, and it's only found in Kahndaq. I mean, it's freaking vibranium in Marvel.
That's vibranium, yeah. That's a little
Wakanda. I was like, seriously, they're really doing that? And then Intergang. So Intergang's an interesting thing in DC because Intergang are these bad guys who get their advanced weaponry from Apocalypse.
Okay, now Geekscape is to explain real quick. The Intergang now in a present day is running Kahndaq, and they're basically just bad guys with guns who are military, and they're owning the place, and you got to go through checkpoints, et cetera, et cetera. Enter Skateboard Kid. So when The Rock, when Black Adam is summoned in this film, which we'll get to, Intergang is running Kahndaq, and they are in need of a hero, and Black Adam steps in, but they kind of work here as that kind of overseeing military force in the Middle East that you want to see get overthrown. They're not that in the DC universe.
Well, this is just it. So I mean, it's basically like super, like, you know, mafia with, you know, powerful weapons, right?
Or any kind of like.
But the idea is that, you know, doing Intergang, it didn't need to be Intergang, but making an Intergang was basically making a statement about, okay, we're pulling from the DC universe, and I want to say, for me, I think what really made me enjoy the movie was that they pull from the DC universe in a lot of places. It made it feel like, oh, we're getting a full DC movie. No one's pretending it's isolated, which again begs the question of why no Shazam, or at least a reference to it. But again, you know, that made me enjoy the movie in so many ways. You know, we mentioned JSA. Obviously, we'll get to the tag at the end. You know, I mean, you know, and the Suicide Squad stuff. You know, like, so it's all these different things are going on. I'm like, great. This is what we're really getting a DC movie, you know? So it's interesting to me. Okay, Intergang's weapons are powered by the Eternium. Now, mind you, that alone is weird because why would you think here's these guys that have come in, they're outsiders. They know so much about Eternium already that they have weapons powered by Eternium. Like in actuality, what would have made more sense would have been if just the bad guys were a, you know, oppressive government of Kahndaq, since Kahndaq's the only place you get Eternium and they have those weapons. Again, that's it. It would be kind of turning the Wakanda idea on its head, right?
Yeah, have a civil
war storyline. That would
have
made more sense, right?
An evil Wakanda that is using the vibranium.
Like making an Intergang actually doesn't make any sense. There's no need for it. It's silly. In fact, in the comics, so the idea, just like in the movie, Yes, he's a slave. Yes, they're, he's, he's a slave in ancient Kahndaq, and, and there's all this oppression that he wiped out. But, when it comes to in the present, and he's been around for a while, but he decides, Kahndaq is still basically enslaved. It's a tyrannical government. And he goes in to basically liberate it. So to me, if you wanted to stay with that idea, and I do think it was interesting to make that the Eternium, basically, but here's the thing. To me, it's a mishmash. And you talk about big different scripts. So the Eternium is powering these weapons. So again, that reminds me both of Vibranium and Wakanda, but it also reminds me of what I thought one of the smartest things Marvel ever did was in Avengers, you have S.H.I.E.L.D. using the tech they get from the Battle of New York. Okay, that it's basically, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, using Chitauri weaponry.
Yeah, using all that. That's like suddenly, now we have all these things that can power things we didn't have before. And if you really watch closely, some of like, you remember there was the one shot, about getting the weaponry, like that stuff, that led very much into what the pilot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was all about, there's all this tech now that's creating other opportunities because the technology wasn't there.
It was the creation of the Vulture. Marvel used it a lot.
Yeah. But the idea is just that because terrestrial weapons didn't have the power sources to do that stuff. It took getting the alien stuff to have the power sources. So, I think that's a really cool idea. So fine, they went to a similar place, with Wakanda and Vibranium. Doing that, okay, it's interesting, but it just doesn't really make so much sense to me that Intergang coming from elsewhere has that. It would have made sense if the country of Kahndaq had that. And by the way,
had been corrupt, had become corrupt.
Is actually name checked and shown briefly in Wonder Woman 1984 too.
Okay, you see it.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that was really weird. And so for me, then saying it's Intergang and knowing in the comics that Intergang is powered by Apocalypse, what would have been really cool for me would have been to even imply that the Eternium actually came from Apocalypse.
Or it is their natural resource, but Intergang is more powerful because Apocalypse did come in the Snyder JLA. And
right. What I'm saying is like, and there have been boom tubes in the past and all that. Listen, it gets messy because what is canon, what isn't? They don't want to refer to the stuff, but should we read into that's left over from when Steppenwolf and Darkseid came in ancient times? Maybe
it would have helped validate a movie that a lot of us kind of moved on from.
Yeah. So to me it's a glaring hole. Sorry about that. It's a glaring hole, but maybe that's what the answer to that is. So that sort of bothered me a bit. The origin, they do it interestingly. I actually really liked the stuff about, they made it seem like he was a champion. It wasn't him, it was his son. What they did, the way they changed the comic was really interesting. So in the comic, instead of his son, it was a nephew. And he was injured, and they were both brought to the wizard, and the nephew was made the champion, but they were both given power. But Teth Adam was actually really bad, and he decided, because they split the power up, he decided that the nephew wasn't going to do what it was going to take to overthrow things. He kills his nephew and takes his power.
That would have been a hardcore reveal, especially after he's developed this kind of forced relationship with this kid. In the movie that we got, he gets this kid that's kind of like, again, the T2 comparison to the John Connor Terminator relationship. And, once he develops this kind of soft side, it would have been nice to understand that, like, he actually killed to get all the power. And now there's a real redemption here 5,000 years later.
But, I have to say, I actually like the change. Because for me, that villainous is a step too far. So I think that's an edit they do. And for me, the idea is supposed to be that he did lose his whole family. And by the way, it's, wife and kids, all this stuff he had in ancient times. Okay.
Well, Ian, you don't play almost any video games, but when I saw the sequence, there's a sequence later in the movie Geekscape is where you got to have the hero and he's got to be down and out, and then he's got to make his comeback. And there's a sequence where he is down and out and he's pretty much dead. And we need him to say the word Shazam. We need him to turn it back into Black Adam. And he thinks that he's dead and has seen his family again. it's straight out of a lot of things, but most recently the God of War video game that they have over at Sony, that is awesome. And again, we Justin and I recommend video games to you, and we don't want to waste your time because you're busy. The games to play are you just need a PlayStation.
Oh, I love those games. Yeah,
it's the Spider-Man games, and then the God of War games.
I can't. I'm too obsessive. Like if
I
I
know.
turn the video game on, I will not do anything for 3 days.
Well,
and then I'll get divorced. I can't.
Somebody on the plane asked me if I was playing Elden Ring, and I said no. LA has too many homeless people. Like I can't get into any more of those games. But the comparisons here is watching that sequence last night, and I know there's a God of War movie coming. Seeing the sequence last night where he thinks he's dead and he sees his wife and his kid, that's right out of the God of War, most recent God of War stuff.
How recent is that? Because they did something very similar in Eternal Warrior in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, the last God of War I think was a 2018 game.
So Eternal Warrior probably borrowed that from the God of War because they did something very like that in Eternal Warrior.
And we've seen that stuff. We saw that in Gladiator when he dies, he sees his wife and kid and this and that. We've seen that stuff.
But the idea of them saying you're not ready and going back, but I mean, it's a trope. It's been around, but honestly, for me, it worked for me. And the idea that his son was the champion gave it to him, and and the whole discussion about being a hero and not believing in it, and sort of honoring his son. I mean, that was very effective to me. That honestly, it's probably what pushed me over to I enjoyed the movie. It gave me a really good feeling about the movie. It really pushed it to, because he'd been so one note and just by the way, it was great for the comedy. Don't kill people, yes you do. The whole thing about who's going to teach the kid violence. I mean, I'm sorry, it was so such an old school thing, but it worked. It was funny to me.
The kid's mom, who is the person who discovers the crown, they're fighting over this crown that's full of eternium, and it's supposed to bring back this this demon, right? And if you wear the crown, then you can rule Kahndaq. So that's kind of the plot point. In trying to get the crown from these ruins, they bring back The Rock, they bring back Black Adam, but the crown gets lost and it bounces around Inner Gang and it falls in the wrong hands. But ultimately, the mom, who is the person who's the specialist who knows where the crown is and investigates it, and has this kid. Yeah, she doesn't want her kid to grow up with violence. There's a whole lot of violence that's coming. I gotta say, some of the tone shifts that were inconsistent were the attempts at humor that happened during the action. You do have the sort of slow down with the classic music we first saw in Days of Future Past so well, but is now kind of overdone when the action slows down, and the hero, in this case Black Adam, is just grabbing missiles out of the sky while classic music plays and pointing them at bad guys and blowing them up. It's an impressive sequence. I don't know if you needed it to totally go for that many laughs, and they try it twice in this movie, which is a little bit of overreach. The Oreo cookie gets a little soggy when you start to dip it in milk that many times.
That didn't bother me so much. I mean, okay. I agree with you. We've seen it before. I mean, for me, things that bugged me, I mean, obviously there was the Eternium thing. And now jumping into, we haven't started the conversation with the JSA yet.
Which is the stuff I enjoyed. If you enjoyed the relationship with the kid, I got to say the JSA and the expansion of the DCEU, to me, was kind of fun.
I love the JSA. I have some quibbles. I mean, first of all, though, speaking of derivative stuff, did we need to have almost the exact same shot out of X-Men of, the
Blackbird
JSA
coming out of the
I was seriously? They couldn't come up with something different?
And they're in the Blackbird.
Yeah.
The ship is the Blackbird.
It's the Blackbird.
Can you tell us about the JSA? Because my impression of the JSA is that classic cover of Justice Society of America, where they're all around the round table, and you have Hawkman, you have Dr. Fate, you have all the classic characters. Who are the JSA and how are they different here?
So all right, I'll get into this a little bit. And honestly, I can go on for a long time about this. So I'm going to try to not go on too long.
That's what I love about you.
The rest of our time. The JSA were before the Justice League. So, DC Comics have been around a long time. Superman, Batman, 1939.
Are these Fawcett characters like Shazam was?
Well, no. So originally it wasn't DC, and a couple of companies came together, formed DC Comics. DC was for Detective Comics, which was where Batman premiered in. But they had Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They had their original Green Lantern, Alan Scott. They had the original Flash, Jay Garrick. They had the original Hawkman. It was Carter Hall, and Hawkgirl, his wife. Dr. Fate, Wildcat. They had the original Red Tornado. They had the Atom, who was and listen, a lot of they had Dr. Midnight, and a lot of characters were just vigilantes. Some had abilities, but basically, these are comics from like the 40s, and in the 50s, the superhero comics hadn't been selling as well. Basically, horror comics have been doing better, and I don't want to go off on a total tangent.
No, the comics code and all that. Yeah.
But basically, they
that
died
led to
off
the Silver
bit,
Age,
and yeah, exactly. And the distinction of the Golden Age of comics, the Silver Age of comics, comes with a desire to bring these comics back. A lot of these characters back. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman had lasted, but a lot of the others had died off. So the original team-up book was the Justice Society. Okay, and beyond that, they revamped the Flash and they revamped Green Lantern, and then they decided to do a new team book, the Justice League of America. And initially, the idea that it was only like 15 years apart between the new Flash that was Barry Allen, the Silver Age, and the Golden Age Flash. So they came up with this idea that they were in a different dimension. You had Earth 1 and Earth 2. So the current books were Earth 1 and the older books were Earth 2. And so the Justice Society and the Justice League would cross over and meet each other because they live in basically a different universe, right?
Sure.
So that's where that comes in. So the Justice Society was firmly Earth 2 because it was older. So there you had an older Batman, an older Wonder Woman, and an older Superman. So pretty much you get a crossover of the Justice League and Justice Society every year. Okay. And that went for many years. And you end up having things like, Robin was an adult, Dick Grayson, Batman and Catwoman were married. They had a kid. That kid was the Huntress.
This is all in Silver Age.
This is
a lot of stuff going on.
This all went Silver Age and into the modern age because just every year they crossed over. So
I didn't know they were so separated.
60s, 70s, into the 80s. And, so time had gone by. But the idea was sort of like, well, back then you couldn't marry Superman and Lois. So the old Superman and Lois on Earth 2, they got married.
Okay.
And this is all pre-crisis. So what Teen Titans was doing really well in the early
1984, 1983.
Yeah, before then.
Okay.
Like 80, 81, 82, around then is what, new Teen Titans had started.
The Marv Wolfman stuff.
Yes. And so they decided, hey, we have the Justice Society on Earth 2. Well, how about we do this thing where we go, we want young heroes from them also. So the sons and daughters of the Justice Society became Infinity Inc. And Infinity Inc. had a character called Nuklon, who had these abilities to grow.
Okay.
Well, do you know who Nuklon became?
Well, he becomes Atom Smasher.
That's right. So,
which we see in the movie.
Right. And you had the Hawkman and Hawkgirl had a son who was Silver Scarab, who, by the way, eventually, and Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor had a daughter, Lyta, who becomes Fury. Okay. Now, the two of them go on to have a baby named Daniel. And, Lyta is in Sandman.
Yeah. Okay.
Daniel goes on to become the new Sandman, the new Dream. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff here.
We just saw that all in the Netflix series.
Exactly. So there's a lot of stuff and all that. But getting into all that, so that's where Atom Smasher comes from, because Atom Smasher is actually the godson of the Golden Age Atom. Okay.
Which I thought was one of my favorite cameos in the movie, is seeing Henry Winkler.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic.
Hilarious.
So yes, basically all this is to say that classic DC stuff is very messy. That's why they did the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they brought it all together, and they split it apart again and brought it all together again.
And that was 1986?
Yeah, 85, 86. But ultimately what you have is, in the more modern DC comics, the Justice Society existed before the Justice League. they just say Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman weren't in it. Well, although I think now they've now that they've sort of loosely retconned Wonder Woman, it's still unclear because Wonder Woman now is like in the movie that she's been around forever. So maybe she worked with them. Still not entirely clear on that because she was around, right? But the other heroes were all around. So Atom Smasher does have this pedigree coming from the Atom. Cyclone's an interesting character. She originally exists as the Red Tornado in Kingdom Come. And then in the Modern Justice Society comic, they brought it back in. They said, oh, yes, she's the character that will be in that possible future Kingdom Come, Red Tornado. But she's Cyclone.
But they gender swapped it in Kingdom Come, and now they brought it back to the modern day as a younger version for the current GSA.
Exactly.
Okay.
And also she gets her abilities from nanobots.
Which you talk about in the movie. That's in the movie.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So she's pretty consistent. They changed her race, but didn't bother me at all. Doesn't matter.
She's great.
For the most part, Atom Smasher and Cyclone, I thought they did a pretty good job. Hawkman is something to talk about.
Okay. Jason Elliott is watching on Facebook, and he says, I saw the movie and thought it was pretty decent. I already knew that Billy was going to be in the movie. We're talking about Shazam. But Aldous Hodges, Hawkman, and Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate were my favorite. Sarah Shahi's accent was also damn good, too. So let's talk about Hawkman and Dr. Fate. So, I thought they were fun, too, but they were fun. They cut out a lot of Hawkman's story.
I just have to say, so Hawkman was a messy character, but they basically cleaned it up a long time ago by saying, look, Hawkman reincarnates. He goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. And he and his wife, they've been reincarnating through time and history. At a certain point, the Silver Age Hawkman was an alien. So they brought the two together by saying it was one of the reincarnations. And it's always messy.
But they're from Thanagar, correct?
Well, Silver Age is from Thanagar.
Right, so they are aliens.
Golden Age is a reincarnation, goes back. He's Prince Khufu from Egypt. So, and it's messy because the reincarnation, the idea is that, all right, it could be from a different planet too.
So this version, is it Thanagarian? Is it ancient? Is it just a dude with a hawk suit?
I don't know. Except we see the Thanagarian emblem.
We see the Thanagarian emblem.
And he has nth metal. So is he an alien? I don't know.
He has nth metal, but he uses he builds the ship out of nth metal. It's indestructible. But also, I was waiting for the introduction of his reincarnation because Dr. Fate is constantly saying that there's a fate waiting for him where he has to die to save the world.
More than that,
and we see these visions.
More than that, Carter Hall, the original Hawkman, was an archaeologist.
Oh shit! Well, they missed some opportunities on this movie, Ian.
What?
It was right there the whole time.
The whole time. How do you not do that?
Fuck.
How do you have a movie with Hawkman in it and the whole plot is based around archaeology and you don't even touch it?
Oh, fuck. Ian, I'm sorry for your loss, man.
Seriously.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I went to a film festival and didn't see this movie with you because, you needed somebody there to hold your hand on this shit, man.
I did.
I'm so sorry, Ian. I'm so sorry.
I was like, what? How do they do that?
That's right there. It had to have been in some of these drafts.
And by the way, and not a word about him being alien, not anything. It's just he has this metal. He can do all these things. No real reference to how or why.
And that's one metal too many in a movie like this, where there's.
Right. You actually have nth metal and this other Eternium thing at the same time. Why?
Ian, I'm so sorry. This movie must have hurt you on a personal level.
You could have even just, if you want to play with it, just make nth metal the whole thing and tie that into Hawkman and why he's going in. But I guess for some reason it had to be Waller sending them. I know people that were going well, what is Justice Society just a Suicide Squad? Now, for me, I felt the idea that wasn't really filmed well is just that, no, Waller has the ability. She called the Justice Society because it was a big deal. So they went. Not because they're lackeys. Yeah.
Okay, so Geekscape, as the Justice Society gets introduced in this, when Black Adam appears, he sets off a whole lot of radars of this brand new superhuman being on Earth. And of course, you've seen Amanda Waller in the Suicide Squad movies and other places in the DC Entertainment Universe. And so she calls up Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate in the Justice Society and says, hey, whoa, hey, we got a brand new metahuman on Earth. I need to know what's up with them. Y'all got to go to Kahndaq and figure this out. And that's the introduction of this Justice Society in the situation. And I kind of enjoyed that we had some Amanda Waller in the movie, again, because it expands the DC entertainment universe and it makes it feel cohesive to an extent. And later on, when they actually capture, or Black Adam gives himself up and says, "You're right, I'm not a hero. I need to be put away." You actually see Amanda Waller, and you see a character from Peacemaker as well, and they put him away.
Amelia Harcourt, James Gunn's
wife. That's his wife. They got married, and James is
girlfriend, but they got married. Yeah.
No, they got married, and James is now in charge of the DC Entertainment Universe.
Yes, so that's something else to discuss. But
but let's discuss this Hawkman and Dr. Fate, because
I mean, so I'm struggling because again, it hurt my brain. There's all these things, even down to and he's so rich, like he's Bruce Wayne, like all these things.
You're talking about Connor Hawk. We're talking about
Hawkman.
Yeah, you're right. You're talking about Carter Hall?
Carter Hall, yes.
So that doesn't get confusing. Good luck.
So, I was like, what? But then he was still great. I mean, Hawkman was awesome.
He was fun.
Yeah. And Dr. Fate was awesome.
Dr. Fate was awesome. And let's be clear, like Doctor Strange is a kind of ripoff of Dr. Fate. And you see Doctor Strange like powers in here, and he's using illusions and he's using constructs and powers. I loved Dr. Fate in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. I thought Pierce Brosnan was great. And it really established that, yes, the JSA has been around a while. He even says it. He was been around since at least World War II. He witnessed soldiers going off to war. And that the helmet has expanded his life. And I thought he was great. I love Dr. Fate, and I loved whatever this version of Hawkman was.
And a lot of people are upset that, he's gone, that he dies. Not only can he come back, but odds are what they're going to do with the helmet going elsewhere is they've done this thing where he's been gone and someone else, he has a descendant that becomes Dr. Fate. In the comics. And odds are they're going to do that with him still in it, advising him.
Yeah, and Geekscape is to spoil it really. Like the whole movie, he's watching these visions of Hawkman having to sacrifice himself in order to save the world in Kahndaq, and it turns out Dr. Fate takes the bullet for him. And I thought that sequence was cool. Pierce Brosnan was awesome. The Dr. Fate stuff was great. And the JSA kind of saves the day. They stop Intergang. That's the end of what I thought was the movie. I thought the end of the movie was, hey, they got the crown. Well, they didn't get the crown, but they stopped Intergang. They rescued the Terminator 2 kid. Kahndaq's been kind of freed. But then the crown kind of falls into the hands of this individual who then summons the demon behind the crown, which is Sabak, this demon, which I think is a recent creation. I heard that
it's been around for a bit. I mean, and it's basically the demon thing, whatever.
He's a demon. In DC, he's basically the devil. He's like the devil, but he's a demon, and that was kind of a sequence that I was falling asleep by that point because I thought the movie was over. I thought the Intergang had been I thought everybody in Kahndaq had been freed. But yeah, the crown ended up in the wrong hands. This dude puts it on, and suddenly he's in hell. I didn't think that riddle worked at all when they were trying to do the riddle. I was like, that didn't do anything for me. But ultimately, this bad guy is in hell. He puts on the crown. The wizards are like, oh shit, this guy put the crown of Sabak on, and then while he's in hell, the demons are like, you're now going to go, you died, you're going to go back to life, and you're going to sit on the crown of Kahndaq, which I guess is important. And
that makes no.
Now he's going to be this giant hell demon that changes sizes. Sometimes he's huge, sometimes he's small. Whatever he needs to fight in this end fourth act sequence.
What I liked about the sequence in hell is that really felt like the comics to me.
Talk to me about that, because I've never seen this.
Just the idea of that, and they're going there, and when you see DC's different versions of hell and all that, it's like even recently in the comics, you have the idea of Billy having to be in hell and guard Neron and all that stuff. Like it's something they've gone to quite a bit within the Shazam family.
Okay.
So that's why I liked that. The going and ruling.
It felt like it should be in a Shazam movie. Because it felt like it should be in Shazam without Shazam being in the movie.
Exactly. But I'm saying going to why Kondak? Why does it work like that? I mean, it comes down to the same thing as why is the attorney in there? And that's what the crown's made of. Like, I got nothing.
Okay, so at this point in the movie, Geekscape, is Black Adam's out of the picture. He's now a property of Amanda Waller, and Dr. Fate kind of mentally helps break him out of the prison from afar, because this monster, Sabak, this demon, is now like huge and walking through the ocean to destroy, to like take over the throne of Kondak, and they can't have that for a reason that we really don't know the results of. Him sitting on the throne, we don't know. Like, go ahead and take this fucking dirt clod country.
I just saw
like,
that as, but it's a
whatever.
demon on Earth. Like, it's just going to get worse and worse. And plus all the people that are going to die. And it brings
You're right, Ian.
the dead back. It's killing everybody.
We can't just let a demon take over the earth, like a country, and then raise a bunch of zombies out of the earth. So Black Adam is now in a prison, and Dr. Fate.
I mean, I would like to know, as always, like, where's the Justice League?
At this point, Black Adam is
literally
like immortal.
Yeah, where's the Justice League?
Black Adam is immortal, and Black Adam has this thing strapped to his face so he can't say the word Shazam, but he doesn't tear it off. He actually like jumps in the ocean through a like magnetic wall and lets himself basically drown before he takes this stupid thing off his face. Like, people are shooting at him. He's immortal. He's getting hit by bullets. He's not dying. But at no point does he just rip this.
He's just human. He's getting shot.
That's what I'm saying. He's getting shot. At no point does he rip this thing off his face and just say, Shazam, y'all are fucked. I'm going to whip myself out of this prison. Yeah. He just kind of, he lets himself drown and then see his dead family before he says Shazam.
I have to say, when they lock him up, you see all those different people locked up in suspended animation, whatever. It's so like Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Can you tell me did you notice any cameos or any?
No, that's what I'm about to say. What a lost opportunity. They gave us nothing.
Oh. Ian, I'm so sorry.
We have no idea who else is there. They didn't, like, there was so many potential Easter eggs there, and we got nothing.
When I got back from Santa Fe, I checked on Ian and wondered if Justin had gone to see him, but Justin has COVID, did not go. Ian had to see this movie by himself, and I was like, I felt bad.
My stepson was supposed to go and then wasn't feeling well. So
Ian, now I realize you're not allowed to go see movies with him. I got picked up those Black Panther tickets for us, man. I can't let you go see these movies anymore, man. You're just taking L's on this one. Like, you're getting hit hard. Like, this movie, I'm so sorry, dude.
I'm so hopeful on Black Panther.
I am too, but having you see Black Adam and then just taking hits like this, Ian, I'm so sorry. As your friend, I failed you.
Honestly, I enjoyed it way more than I expected. I went in with low expectations, so it wasn't that it didn't kill me. And again, I came out, I enjoyed it. I had big issues with it. Listen, come on, man. It's not like we've all been here, and
we were there together when we went to see the Spirit.
So many times that we've all been disappointed, right? So. It's sort of funny, right? Like
in this movie is
Marvel
fun.
Stuff. Yeah, but so much of the Marvel stuff really elevated things to a point of like, where are our expectations, right?
Yeah, this movie is kind of silly but fun. I had fun.
They did a couple things right.
You get to see Black Adam rip a demon in half by the horns. That was awesome.
That was cool shit.
Yeah, it was fucking cool.
Yeah,
magma poured out of his head. I thought that was cool. And Black Adam saves Kondak, and
I got a question for you. So he's so fast, and he just zips, through everything, like basically the Flash. But then when he's going after them on the cycles with the kid, then he can't catch them.
No, the cycles are doing the whole cycle situation. Like, again, I started towards the end of the first, at the end of the inner gang saving the kid sequence before we introduced the demon Sabak. Like, I was like, hey man, this movie needs to wrap it up. And they should have found a way to streamline those storylines together.
Yeah, for some reason they established early that the Eternium can hurt him, but then they just
never went to it again.
Forget about that.
You see it.
Yeah.
You see him get shot with it. You see it knock him out, and he has to sleep it off and then heal himself. And they don't use it on him ever again.
Yeah,
I thought it was definitely going to be a
implication is, I guess, because they're using the power of the force field, so he knows he can't get through it, or I guess.
Okay, so we got the ending. He saved Kondak, and then Amanda Waller shows up.
Wait, what about he's going to rule? No, he's not, but he's still
he's going to sit on the throne,
but he's not ruling.
He's just going to be the champion, and y'all are going to have to hold your own elections. Right. He's the protector. He's going to be running that place in a week, man. Okay, so we got the tag.
Right.
What does Amanda Waller say? Sorry, sir.
So she's basically the whole oh no one on this planet is like and she has to do the whole I have people that aren't from this planet and all that.
And they're gonna put you down. Black Adam, stay in Kondak, or else you're gonna be my problem.
Yes, exactly. So the statement is, if you stay in Kondak, you're fine, because in fairness, the people Kondak love him. So what does she really have to say?
They did the Diamond Dallas Page sign to summon him. They were like, "You're awesome," and they have a little triangle sign they do with their hands.
Exactly.
Support.
So they're fine with him. So you better not come out. And he's all like, "Oh, I'll do what I want," And then this surprised me. I expected Superman. Didn't expect Superman to say what he said.
Okay, talk to me about this, because
he comes down and
Dwayne Johnson, to get people in theater seats when this movie looked like it was going to underperform. I don't actually know how it did, but Dwayne Johnson came out and goes, "Oh, by the way, the tag is Henry Cavill as Superman." Like, get your ass in seats. He's selling tickets for a 1-minute cameo. He
basically says something that for me was the most Superman thing to date I've seen Henry Cavill do.
And he's in a suit that is very red and blue. This is a very Superman suit, but basically
they lighten the blue. It's not as
Amanda
dark as
Waller logs off, and Superman comes out of the shadows and stares at Black Adam, and Black Adam looks at him, and they don't know each other from Adam. And what does Superman say?
And he says, "We should talk."
Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to just fight. It's not a slugfest.
And that's Superman.
Yeah. And Black Adam gives him a look like, "We'll see how far that goes. This might turn into a slugfest, but we'll save it for the sequel." And that was the tag.
And I didn't feel like that was, the sequel is they just fight.
No, I didn't either.
I don't think that's what it is at all.
I think he's going to show up in Shazam 2.
I think he's going to have something in that. I think that they've actually said that it's not the next place you see Superman.
Is Shazam 2?
No, I mean, Black Adam 2 is not the next place you see Superman. Excuse me.
No, I heard that Henry Cavill re-upped a deal with Superman, and they're going to rededicate the focus on making Superman an actual property in the DCEU, maybe with his own films.
I think he's getting his own movie.
Which is great.
I hear he appears in something else.
What would that be?
I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. I don't know for sure.
Well, I know, but is it something that's already on the slate that we know about?
Something else I hear he's going to show up in.
Would it be a Flash movie that is stuttering itself to the finish line?
It might be.
Okay. Yeah. Who knows? At this point, Ian, I'm surprised if somebody doesn't show up in that Flash movie. Yeah. It feels like it's
going to be big.
It's going to be big, but it also feels like it's DC gumbo at this point, where they're just throwing all sorts of stuff in the pot.
It might be good.
Might be good, I mean, who knows what that Flash movie is at this point?
Miller's definitely done after it. The question is, are they going to put anything in this movie?
Ezra Miller's done. Yes.
The question is
my favorite DC architect that we talk about, whose name is Miller, is Frank. So we got to be clear.
Yeah. Ezra Miller is definitely not going to be doing anything else. The big question is, because I think he plays several versions in this movie. The big question to me is, and what would be smart, but I think it would take reshoots, is, do you do something in the movie to recast him, or do you just do it James Bond and just someone else is playing him next movie and don't even write into the story? Don't write into the story, just recast him.
You don't think Grant Gustin is going to show up again or anything like that? We love Grant Gustin.
I'd be down with it, but I don't know if they'll go that way. It's a different version. So
in the Flash that George Miller had is already in the Shazam movies.
Yeah,
that wasn't that. What's the name of the actor who's in the Shazam movies who was cast as George Miller's Flash? Dude from the OC. You know what I'm talking about.
Adam.
Yeah, you got one name. Adam.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name.
Someone watching can bail us on that one. Somebody's doing the IMDb on that.
Yes.
Adam Brody.
Yes. I
pulled that out of my brain.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it works sometimes.
Dude,
I went to the comic book store yesterday and it wasn't even open because it was Tuesday. So my brain's all scrambled. I didn't even. Did I get married 10 weeks ago or 10 years ago? That's how scrambled I am. You could actually argue that I did get married 10 years ago. Never mind. Okay, so
I wasn't going to.
So we've got maybe Black Adam showing up in Shazam 2 would be appropriate and great. And when does Shazam 2 come out? I got a trailer for it, but when's the release date?
Is it March?
Okay, so it's not so soon. It's not a holiday release.
No, I think it's a few months away.
It's
I mean,
2 Marvel movies away and a Guardians holiday special.
Am I getting confused with the Marvel slate? Because Marvel, we have Black Panther in a couple weeks.
It just says 2023, March 17th, 2023 is Shazam 2 Fury of the Gods. So it's March 17th, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we have Black Panther coming up in 2 weeks. We got tickets to that. Multiverse, we got a little Quantumania going on in February, it looks like, for the Ant-Man, the third Ant-Man movie.
Excited
and then,
that,
I love the trailer for the Guardians of the Galaxy special that we were getting on November 25th. The 1 hour, I think it's 1 hour holiday special. That's going to be fun on Disney Plus. But where do you think we might see the JSA again? Because they're my highlight from this movie. I love seeing them.
So, I mean, look, that's the question is, obviously if this movie did crazy business, they could do a JSA movie, but
how did
I'm
it
not
do,
expecting.
Ian?
I think it did okay. The big question is going to see what the drop off is.
Or foreign.
They're saying, oh, great, it did over, I think it was 67 million opening weekend.
They were predicting 50, so that's better.
That's not a terrible drop off.
Yeah, 50 would have been almost a disaster.
Oh, no, they were predicting 50. They were predicting high 50s to 60.
Yeah.
It did slightly better than what they were
predicting. Good, because I didn't hate this movie. It can exist.
Yeah,
I allow it.
The big deal that went on for, I don't know how many of the viewers pay attention to this stuff, but with DC basically being rudderless, the DC film division, it very much looked like Dwayne Johnson and his people, his management, were looking to be the people to take over DC. And the James Gunn filmmaker, and Peter Safran, who was a very well-regarded producer, they're taking it over jointly, seems to have taken them unawares.
So Dwayne Johnson and his camp, they really had their eyes set on being the architects of the DC Entertainment Universe over at Warner's?
Yeah.
And this was kind of like would you say it was a slight to them that James Gunn and Peter Safran took over instead?
They had no idea. Idea what was coming.
Is this tripping us up for more Black Adam?
I doubt it, but it's hard to say.
Money is money, man. Like there's some
it's
change.
Money. There's all kinds of things. I mean, but apparently, for people I know that pay attention to this stuff, Dwayne Johnson, was tweeting constantly. He's got real quiet since that news.
He was in super support of this movie. He was really trying to push it past the.
But I'm saying since the news of James Gunn, the comments were, all about Superman and our DCEU and what we're going to do with it and all these things. It was all talking so much about him being in control of direction. And if you look at all his tweets, all the things he'd been saying. It was like he was expecting to be in charge.
I like Dwayne Johnson.
I do too.
I think he's a star.
I'm a giant fan.
Yeah. I met him once, Ian, at a WrestleMania event when my brother was still wrestling in WWE, and I shook his hand. It did not break my hand. He was very nice. Did he really? You went to school?
I did. At the same time, went to the same school.
You went to the same school at the same time that he did?
Yeah.
Did he bully you?
No.
Okay, good. Because that's where that would have torn it. I like Dwayne Johnson.
I told you to watch Young Rock. I think you'd love it with all the rest of it.
Yeah, I have a friend in it who plays Vince McMahon in that one.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in When Ninjas Attack for Me. Adam.
Yeah,
he's great in it.
We watch it as a family show in my house.
Okay. Do you watch House of Dragon as a family show as well?
The kid isn't ready for that.
No, that's a whole other Geekscape, man. Talk about that. I'm enjoying it. So who knows? We're going to see the Justice Society. I think that that the James Gunn news and Peter Safran news is good. Sorry for The Rock getting misled if that's what happened. I don't
think it was misled. I think he was trying to make something happen and it didn't.
So, but I'm super optimistic of James Gunn and Peter Safran
Yeah.
taking over. I think everything they've touched over at DC and at Marvel has been great. So let's see what they can do, putting this thing back together again. Like
I
the
agree.
Flash movie looks like some weird gumbo where there's a lot of different
Well,
flavors in it.
I mean, my joke was, Peacemaker and the JLA, but
let's do it. I do love that ending to Peacemaker, and I hope this doesn't slow down Peacemaker too. I hope James is still able to freely create and work in the DC universe. It seems like he's got the keys now.
The great thing is that I think it doesn't. I think it makes, we're getting Peacemaker 3.
Yeah. When do we get the announcement of James Gunn's Superman film?
That's a really good question. I think that, I think basically from what I hear, the Cavill deal is not quite completed, but it's on the verge. And
for a new
then
Superman film.
Then it's going to be a question of who it is.
Yeah.
And, listen, I had heard a bunch of rumors, but, as for what's true and what isn't, it depends on, does Gunn want to do it himself or tap someone else? That's the big question I think is in a lot of people's minds right now. Is what does this mean with James Gunn being the creative architect?
Do we get the next Superman director or the next Blade director first?
Well, that's a really good question because I think that the Blade thing is now a mess, right?
Is it a mess?
Well, here's the thing. So staying on target, let's talk about James Gunn, in this role at DC. We've seen a lot of filmmakers come off of a Marvel movie and say how difficult and how dreary and terrible it is because they don't really have creative control. Now, stark contrast, for years, the big problem with the DCEU is Warner Brothers as a studio traditionally is so creator friendly that they let the directors do whatever they wanted and it wasn't cohesive.
They just,
Yeah. So my belief, my hope is that James Gunn can toe the line between those two different, strongly, unfortunately, often diametrically opposed inclinations and maybe bring something together where you still have creators getting to see their vision through, but at the same time still doing something cohesive.
Will his first act be to release the Batgirl movie?
That's a really interesting question.
Wait, really? I think for tax purposes, you can't release that Batgirl movie, even with James Gunn at the helm of DC.
Maybe.
Oh, well, it would be. Listen, it would go a long ways to like.
Listen, I hear all kinds of things.
Okay, Ian. That's why we have you on here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I've heard. I heard a rumor somewhere.
I honestly didn't think it was a possibility.
I heard a rumor somewhere that maybe that write-off didn't kind of go through at the same level that it might have, and maybe there's a world in which it gets released now.
Oh, we're all dude.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Geekscapists, we would look forward to it, and we would talk about it right here on this podcast. So you need to subscribe.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's true. I mean, here's the thing: I don't know if it makes sense to release that movie because they're doing so many things differently. But yeah, it depends on what Gunn's perspective is on that, I think they were leaning in on Keaton. I think that they decided to go the other way and go back to Affleck, which so much of that is dependent on Affleck. It's not up to Gunn if Affleck wants to do the movies or not, So
he's an Aquaman too. So there's that.
Now, supposedly, I mean, there's different ways of looking at it. Originally, they shot Keaton scenes for Aquaman 2 because Aquaman 2 was going to be after the Flash movie that was going to establish Keaton, as basically initially it was going to be Affleck would be out in Flash 2 and Keaton would take over. And then he would have been in Aquaman 2 as well as Batgirl. So, and again, hear different things, all that. But my understanding is when they flipped the release dates, it necessitated it not being Keaton because that would make no sense right now. So that had to be Affleck. So what does that mean for the Flash movie? Well, we're not sure, but maybe it's still Affleck afterwards if Affleck wants to keep doing it.
All right, Geekscapists, we just gave you a whole lot to chew on there in the last 15 minutes of this breakdown. I look forward to it, and you should be looking forward to this. Ian and I are going to sit down and watch some Wakanda Forever in about 2 weeks and just on the heels of that, you're going to get your Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever Geekscape special with Ian. I think
Wakanda Forever, or
it's Kenduck Forever, like this, or it's Diamond Dallas Page from the wrestling thing. All right. Geekscape is, you know where to find us. So we got the podcast, we got the podcast network, we got the social medias. Just search at Geekscape. Share it with your friends. That really helps. And of course, leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed this episode. Just go to whatever podcatcher you're using and say, hey, I loved it. Ian has a lot of knowledge when it comes to all these comic books. It blew my mind when he was going off about the Golden Age and the Silver Age and the JSA and all that stuff. Because, dude, you were dropping some knowledge that I even didn't know. And I know quite a bit, man. I do love my funny books. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This was great. And I got tickets for that Wakanda Forever. I'm excited for it. And obviously, Geekscape will be back very soon on this feed with a brand new Geekscape episode. So again, subscribe. I'm not going to push too much. You know where to find us. Geekscape Forever. For Ian Kerner, over and out.